All right, so this is Chapter 1, Section 2. It's called Multiplying a Polynomial by a Monomial. Sorry, I think it's kind of cut off from the recording up top here. If I scooch down a little bit, you can actually see the title there. There we go. So we kind of reviewed pretty heavily polynomials and monomials in the last section. So now we're going to look at multiplying a polynomial by a monomial. So to find the product of a polynomial and a monomial, you can use the distributive property. So we actually go through, just like we did on the last section with horizontal or vertical, there's both of these methods as well. So we have the horizontal method, meaning from, left to right. So this is the distributive property, what it's talking about. So we're taking this negative 3x squared and we're distributing it or multiplying it by each piece inside the parenthesis here. So we can see that happening down here. Negative 3x squared times 7x squared. Negative 3x squared times x. And they did just times x. They did the minus out in front here. And then negative 3x squared times the 4 on the end. So we can see the negative 3x squared happening 3 times. It's being multiplied by all 3 pieces of that trinomial. And then they simplify. So negative 3 times 7, that's where they get negative 21. Whenever we have coefficients on the front of exponents, we multiply those coefficients first, and then you combine the exponents for a variable. Because remember, x squared times x squared, what this really means is x times x. And what this means is x times x. And we have another times here. So really, it's all multiplication. We just combine them. So instead of saying x squared times x squared, we have x to the 4th power, which is exactly what they show here. So when you multiply variables, as long as they're the exact same base, so in this case they're both x's, we can combine those variables. I said that funny again. As long as they're the same variable, we can combine the exponents. Sorry. And then the next piece we have, the minus is still in the front here, so they're just combining this. We have negative 3 times, this is basically 1. Not basically, it is 1. So we just have the negative 3 on the front here. And then x squared times x. Remember, again, if I don't see the exponent there, it is a 1. So I have 2 x's here, just like up here. And this is only 1x, so 2 plus 1 is 3. And then plus negative 12x squared, so they did negative 3 times 4. They got negative 12. And then x squared, there is no x on this one, so it just comes down and it's x squared. And then they simplify a little bit more here by getting rid of the parentheses. So if we have a negative and a negative, we end up with a positive there. So we distribute that negative, basically it's negative 1. So it gets distributed in here and there's 2 negatives. And then we have a positive and negative, and that ends up being a negative. So we want to drop those off and simplify them as much as we can. And then this one, the vertical method, it's the same thing. Say if we had something like this, and I wanted to multiply these guys. Well, I'd go 4 times 2, and I'd get 8. And then I'd go 4 times 1, and I get 4. And I get 48. Well, I'm going to do the exact same thing if I want to multiply a polynomial and a monomial. I will take the 3x squared and I'll multiply by 4. And that's where the negative 12x squared came from. And then I'm going to multiply by the next piece, which is where the positive 3x cubed came from, because 2 negatives make a positive here. And then 3 times 1 is 3. X squared times x to the 1st power is x cubed. So it's the same process as this one. They're the exact same problem. They're just 2 different methods. And then we would multiply by that last term there, just like we would with this one. So if I had a larger number like this, I'd go 4 times 5, 4 times 2, and then 4 times 1. That's how we multiply numbers. That's how we learned how to multiply. So we're doing the same thing. It's just a little bit more complicated looking because it's monomials. It has variables in it, but it's the same concept. All right, so let's go ahead and actually see what this looks like over here. So I'm going to do this one horizontal, and I'll do this one vertically. So horizontally, and I believe that's 5. Sorry, it gets a little blurry on here. So 5a squared times negative 4a squared. So I have 5 times negative 4. That's negative 20. A squared times a squared, just like x squared times x squared, I have 4 of them because 2 plus 2 gives me 4. All right, now I can go to the next one here. I have 5 times 2a, so I end up with 10a cubed because it's a squared and a. So 5 times 2, that's where I came to the 10. A squared times a is a cubed. And then the last piece here, I'm going to jump all the way over. 5a squared times negative 7. So 5 times negative 7, that's negative 35. A squared times, there's nothing else to multiply it by, because there is no, we kind of match up the like terms as we're multiplying within. So it just becomes negative 35a squared. All right. So, let me see. I'm going to erase that just so I have a little bit more room here. All right, so I'm going to write this up here. 3d4 minus 3d plus 9. And then I'm going to multiply by negative 6d cubed. So I'm multiplying. All right, I'm even going to change the colors here just so we can kind of see. So first I'm going to multiply just like I would in regular multiplication. I'm going to multiply by the first number here. So negative 6 times 9 gives me negative 54. And then since there is no d variable on 9, it's just the d cubed that was on there originally. Now I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to multiply. So negative 6 times, remember there's a 1 here. So negative 6 times negative 1 gives me positive 6. And then d cubed times d, remember there's a 1 here. So I have 3 plus 1, so I get the 4th to the 4th power. I'm going to multiply by the third piece here. So negative 6 times negative 2, I get positive 12. 2 negatives make a positive, and 6 times 2 is 12. And then d cubed times d cubed, remember this is 3 and 3, so it's to the 6th power. And then I have this last piece here. So negative 6 times 3 gives me negative 18. And then d cubed times d to the 4th. So now I have 3 plus 4, and I get 7. All right. So that was multiplying a polynomial and a monomial, both horizontally and vertically. Again, it just depends on which method kind of makes more sense to you visually. Which one do you like to look at, and which one do you understand a little better? That's the method you should use. All right, I will see you in section 3.